Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Edie Myers-Power, and I am the Youth and Education Programs Coordinator at NAMI East Side. I'd like to welcome you all to our Evergreen Health Forum. This is a monthly educational forum where we talk about different topics around mental health. And this month, I am super excited to introduce you to our panel from Open Arms Perinatal Services. Tonight, Rokia, Jamie, Cynthia, and Elizabeth will be discussing their approach to supporting families with mental health services through the perinatal period and Open Arms success with responsive program development. So I am going to go ahead and turn the floor over to them. Thank you so much for being here tonight, y'all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Edie. We really appreciate you having us this evening. And we definitely look forward to sharing about this topic. I think I speak for everybody tonight when I say we're all very passionate about it. And we like to think that Open Arms does some pretty amazing work in this area. So I'm going to share our slides and also allow folks to introduce themselves. All right, so give me just a sec here. Let me get the slide deck up. All right, and everybody can see that okay? Can I get a thumbs up from the panel? Awesome. Very good. All right, well, thank you again, Edie, for that wonderful introduction. We are, of course, Open Arms Perinatal Services, and tonight we're talking about community-based approaches to perinatal mental health. And so we have a wonderful illustrious panel. I'm gonna let them start to introduce themselves. And there's our next slide. Cynthia, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Cynthia Turrieta. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the acting co-executive director for Open Arms and also the director of programs. I am a licensed clinical social worker in Washington State, and I've had the pleasure of working with Open Arms for over 7 years. So my role is to support all the programs in what they need in order for us to continue to provide culturally responsive perinatal support. And I will pass it on to Rokia.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am wearing dual hats this evening. Such a pleasure to be here with this panel, and I will also be supporting as moderator. My name is Rokia Jones. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Community Engagement Specialist at Open Arms Perinatal Services. And my role is pretty much how it sounds. I get to do really cool activities like this, setting up opportunities for us to share about our work, as well as supporting our community education program that we recently launched. We're very excited about, and continuing to support with engaging our contracted doulas and our larger, broader Open Arms community. So very excited to be here this evening. And we hope we get to count you as more of our Open Arms community. So I'm going to pass it to Jamie Bess.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Bess. I use she and her pronouns. I'm really glad that you all are here this evening. I am the Family Support Services Program Director at Open Arms. And so my team has a lot of different touches with community, from tangible goods and support, and also really deeper dives with resource navigation and help to access needed things across really all the holistic needs of a family and of families who are enrolled at Open Arms. So really glad to be here to share more about our work. I've had experience at Open Arms as a home visitor and also on the administrative side of things. So I'm just really excited to share, and I'll pass it on to Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Also just really honored to be here. My name is Elizabeth Montez. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an international board certified lactation consultant, and I've been with Open Arms since 2020, and I am the community education and lactation clinical lead. It's a brand new department, so it's a new title. I'm still working on remembering it. So what we focus on in the newly launched community education department is really creating and sharing community-based education and professional development opportunities. And this also kind of ties in with our community-based lactation program. So we do direct service as well as education for parents, communities, and rising professionals of color within our communities. That's it.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you all. I told you all we have a stellar panel this evening. So without further ado, I am going to jump into the questions, y'all. We are running up time already. Sheesh. Okay, so the first question is, let's talk more about who is Open Arms and what services do we provide folks who are pregnant or have just given birth. And I'm gonna throw that question to Cynthia, at least to start us off. And I'm gonna jump to our next slide.
I would love to, thank you.
Yeah.
What I could say is that Open Arms is 25 years old, so we have been around for a while. We're the oldest organization of its kind in Washington State. So we, just to give you regional context so that other people around the area, we primarily serve King County area, and we are starting to serve Pierce and some Snohomish County folks. But we provide culturally responsive service perinatal support. We started with a group of volunteers that had a really strong passion to ensure that people would not birth alone because they couldn't afford support. So we are most known for providing doulas free of cost. And for those of you that don't know what a doula is a trained community health worker that provides information, educational support in the perinatal period. So prenatal, when someone's pregnant, they're at the birth, at the labor providing physical and emotional support, and then support them postnatally. And since then, we've been able to grow. So our doula services are still free. We, for the most part, provide culturally matched services, and that's something that's really important to us. We want to ensure that people are getting services within their social cultural context that honor their traditions, honor their birthing practices. We try to match the doula or the provider with the client. And that we've seen establishes a really beautiful relationship in the continuum of services. Our doula services can provide support starting at like 27 weeks of pregnancy and depending on the program all the way until the child turns 2. We are very happy to be able to provide more services. So Elizabeth mentioned our lactation services, which provides, again, culturally responsive lactation support, one-on-one support and group. You also mentioned, Elizabeth, our community engagement and education strategies to ensure that we are providing support for the workforce in order to continue to grow our workforce and support for in the perinatal field. And the other piece is that in 2020, we were able to enhance our services through our family support services. And so as we've been working with families and as we work with families, we know and learn all of these other supports that they need that are outside of the perinatal health field, but are very important, right? To not just their mental health, their well-being, but also in their parenting practices. So we try to link them to services that involve housing, Jamie mentioned this, and could be mental health, diapers, could be car seats and those kinds of things. But all of our services take this holistic approach. We want to see the family in this holistic way, and to ensure that we are trying to bridge as many gaps as possible. And I think that's what has really made our services really special in the community, to be able to pair folks with people from their community, and also in the languages that they speak, and also try to see the whole picture. And I think that's been really important. And our outcomes, thank you, Rokia, you've been able to, you get kind of from the slide, a sense of how much work we can do. We're small and mighty, and so we've been able to provide lots of support for the community. This is our 2023 year. In a given year, we can serve up to 500 people across all of our services. And most, like I said, in the King County area. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Jamie, would you like to jump on this? Some of these slides are talking about a lot of what your department, I'll say, handles for the organization. So just maybe talking a little bit more about how this is mitigating some huge barriers for families.
Sure, I could hop in. And diapers in particular are one of the most vital pieces and pieces of work that our program holds. And forgive me, I'm a little discombobulated. I've had multiple phone calls about my children and things happening all at once. So if you don't mind, could we go to the next slide, and I will try to catch up. So again, just revisiting the program that I'm focused in on is our Family Support Services program. And it really touches families in a multitude of ways. Again, from that individual one-to-one resource navigation support that families are able to access, and then also tangible goods. So that might be baby items, it may be food. We were able to pass out food to families directly during the pandemic, and that continued on until early this year. Always looking for additional resource and support that we are able to help families get connected to that they really may otherwise not have access to. We have a community baby boutique that's open to the community on Thursdays. So families within Open Arms, providers from Open Arms, then also folks in community, any pregnant parenting person who has needs is able to walk in once a week and get access to any of the items that we have available in the boutique. And it's all community donation built. So we appreciate donations to our baby boutique. We also help families via a helpline. So we have all of our families are, oh my goodness, y'all, forgive me. All of our providers are trained family health navigators. And so families are able to reach out once a week to also get help connecting to Apple Health, able to connect with other services that they may need, transportation, utility help, and just general questions about coverage, WIC, things that are available to them that might be a financial help. So that is a snippet of what we do. And yeah, I guess I'll pass it on to Elizabeth.
Yeah, I actually want to just I'm sure you have more to add, Elizabeth. We're talking about lactation lounges, but I want to go on ahead and formally ask the question, how are these, we'll talk some more about what are the barriers people are facing in when they're trying to seek mental health support, and it's particularly during this perinatal period. And so, Elizabeth, I'd love for you to share more about what's the benefit of lactation lounges, and then we'll dig some more into the overall the general barriers families are experiencing, and how what you all are sharing now, how it all relates. So we'll dig into that some more. But yeah, go on ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks, Rakia. Absolutely. And I think it's so important that we recognize that these things, every single one of these 100% ties into our maternal mental health and infant and child mental health. I was thinking when we were talking about doing this presentation, I was thinking of this story that came up. I first heard a couple of years ago when I was in a childbirth ed training, and I've heard it as a Coast Salish story, but I've also heard variations from different communities about a river. And I see all of this work that we all do. We are various sisters along this river. So the story is about how there was 3 sisters who came up to the river to go fishing, and they saw that the salmon were all dying and dead in the river. And the 3 sisters went and found different places along the river and different strategies for helping the salmon and supporting the foodway. So whether it was rescuing the salmon, changing the trajectory of the salmon, taking them somewhere else, or fixing the river. And so, we'll be kind of going over all the different ways. But what I love is that we're all part of these sisters who are at different points in the river. So as my role is in lactation and in community education. So I love that I get to be, I'm on like 2 sides of the river. I'm in the direct service part as well as in the education part. So in lactation, we're really in that direct service role where we are supporting folks with how they are taking care of their babies. So we're coming in when folks may be in crisis. So we're often one of the healthcare workers who people develop a relationship with. So we provide in Open Arms, we provide one-on-one lactation support as well as lactation lounges. So we provide a group environment as well as one-on-one care support for folks. And then another piece of that is that we know that lactation can be a protective factor against maternal mental health challenges. So when we protect the lactation relationship, we are also protecting somebody's mental health. And when we protect the cultural traditions of our lactation relationship, and we are actually bringing back these lactation traditions, because serving in primarily communities of color, Black and Indigenous communities specifically, this is a really important tradition that has been purposefully interrupted here in the United States. And so by supporting folks in restoring those traditions, we are helping reconnect our communities to our own traditions, which is very protective for mental health. And so the nuts and bolts of that really looks like these lactation lounges where we have community-based lactation care providers, peer counselors, who hold space for folks, where folks can come and gather in community. They're a group setting, which is on purpose so that folks can build relationships with each other as well as with the peer counselors. And then we also provide that one-on-one lactation support where if someone's having a really difficult or challenging clinical situation, we have peer counselors who help with the guidance along the way, and then I can also come in as a clinical provider and provide escalated support. And then we also do screenings, and we'll connect folks to resources. And because it's relationship based, oftentimes this provides an opening to folks who may not have felt comfortable or known how to open up in other environments.
That's awesome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump to the next slide, and I actually wanted to add a little bit more context here. So, just living in this westernized American cultural context, oftentimes folks are disconnected from maybe their cultural or community groups. And so what we see in our field is that one of the biggest barriers that families experience is isolation. And so when we talk about lactation groups, the sheer ability to bring folks together to be able to talk about their experiences, ask questions, share about the things that they're noticing about their kiddo, or just really having that one-to-one contact with another human being is actually one of, again, like Elizabeth shared, one of the hugest protective factors for our families. And it's something that doulas and other birth workers, lactation consultants specifically, it's one of the biggest things we step in and do. I like to say that the first and most important job in our role is that emotional support. That is the first and best thing we can do in the perinatal space. It makes such a huge difference for a person when they feel supported, when they feel heard. And that's backed by research, right, you guys? And so when we look at it that way, essentially what we're talking about here and what you'll see on these next couple of slides is we're really addressing those social, emotional, or those social determinants of health factors, right? And so when we're talking about social determinants of health, we're talking about where you live, your access to food, your access to transportation, your access to good health care, your access to good schools, all those things, and even more specifically, the experience of racism, right? And so these are all things that we'll dig into a little bit more. Cynthia, did you want to add some more context here on this section? We're talking about barriers that people seeking mental health care, particularly in this perinatal sphere, if you can share some more about what we see at Open Arms and how we mitigate that.
Yeah, I think, for factors, the factors that that contribute to mental health challenges, one of the things that I want to frame is the context that we're working in. So when we look at Elizabeth, you were touching on this as well, as what is in our community-based and in the scope of our works, where are we in this continuum of promotion, prevention, and intervention, right? And we definitely see ourselves in this space of promotion and prevention, because oftentimes, while we are the folks that are providing education, we are also in spaces, and most times because of isolation or stigma around mental health or what have you, folks are really worried to say, hey, I'm struggling, or I'm having a hard time, and this is not what I thought it was. But who they can share that with is mostly someone that's there can rely on, and usually it's their doula or their lactation consultant or their community health worker that they've developed this really strong relationship with. And we feel like we can be a bridge to supporting folks and getting connected to those to the treatment side of things. So I want to also frame that piece of where we're at. And I personally believe that relationships can be very healing, and we know that there are times where we need to also link people depending on the severity and what we're seeing to other services that are out of our scope of work. The other thing that I will say about that is that we sometimes are the only folks that ask about people's mental health, believe it or not, in the time in their perinatal period. So I think that's building that relationship and that consistent follow-up with people. We definitely have seen that our providers might be the first people that they say this is not going the way that I need to, and I don't know what's happening, and I really wanted this baby or something like that. And for us to be able to hold that very well and know kind of what to do with that, I think is really the framing that I want to be able to bring in as we talk about the next couple of pieces.
Yeah, Elizabeth, Jamie, I'd like to invite either of you to chime in. I kind of hop to the next slide so folks can have the chance to see a little bit more of what we're sharing on this topic here.
I can just jump in to add, going back to talking more about what it really looks like for families who are connecting with us. It's so clear how often economic factors are directly related to a family's mental health. To, someone who's just birthed, we have so many families that we're working with who are returning to work directly after having their child because they have to. So they're not yet in a state where they're truly prepared to either separate from their babies while they go to work. Um, and there's just such a weight, I think, going back to what Rokia said about isolation and what it really looks like for families as they're navigating how to keep their bills paid and take care of this new baby and acknowledge the changes that are happening with their body, all of the care that they really need for themselves as well. So just really wanting to circle back to additional support that we offer. We have peer groups as well that are specifically for the Black community and for the Latinx Spanish speaking community. So we specifically, we have PEPS groups, but we anticipate we'll have additional options for groups in the future. But what that really looks like is also another space for a family to connect and drop in and have conversations, maybe about things that they didn't even realize were things that should be areas of concern or on their radar. So often, as a new parent, you are going from moment to moment. So you're not even having someone, like I believe Cynthia brought up, who's asking you those questions. You know, is this, how have you been feeling? It's of course it's easy to kind of throw the blanket of, well, it's normal to be tired because it is. It's normal that you're exhausted because it is. But the reality is that there could be something deeper happening. And if there's not someone there who is really focused on the emotional well-being of this new mama, this new family, that there would be no way of knowing that that's happening. So there's opportunities, again, in person, families can walk in and have a conversation to really actually identify what might be coming up for them. And as we talk about CPS involvement, we know that families are truly fearful of saying something, having something written on paper. We might have a family who will say that they feel fine, but when we're having a conversation with them, what they will share is completely different from what we've written down on an assessment or on a piece of paper, right? So that relationship piece and really building that cultural trust is important as well, and being able to communicate what might actually be going on and the need for additional support.
I really appreciate you saying that, Jamie. If you hadn't, I was gonna jump on it. So I'm so glad you mentioned it. That we're not saying that other providers don't ask about mental health. We know that it's very common for a perinatal screen or maybe briefly in a postnatal screen that providers will ask. But what's significant about our work is the relationship building. For our community-based outreach doula program, families join the program at about 27 weeks, but we've had families join as soon as their pregnancy is confirmed at 21 weeks. And we start building that relationship with families right away with attendance of the birth. So we have that continuity of care, right? And so I've had, I've worked in several roles at Open Arms since I've been there for a long time. But I've had the privilege of having really deep, trustful relationships with my clients, and they've been able to answer their PS9s very honestly with me in a way that maybe doesn't feel so safe or as accessible when you're having an appointment in a large institution. So just wanted to throw that out there. Did you have anything to add, Elizabeth? You look like you might want to say something.
I did. I just wanted to kind of build on to the really incredible points that both you and Jamie made, Rokia, in really putting a fine point on recognizing when we look at the just incredible, like the vast diversity of what those risk factors for maternal health risk factors are, and recognizing that you know, a lot of times people think about maternal health support or any mental health support and think immediately what that means is therapy. But when we look at what all the risk factors are, that also, each one of those risk factors, the flip side of it is that there's a protective factor to go with it. So every single thing that we can do to support someone's life in a way that offsets some of those risk factors is in fact a mental health support. So you know, if we recognize the fact that these are beyond just hormonal risk factors, which are absolutely one of them, but we have all these other things, and so many of them are deeply rooted in trauma and oppression and you know, all of these other situations that are happening to people. Any of the ones that are situational can be offset with a protective factor. And so when we look at all of the programs that we're able to provide, you know, they are directly related to improving maternal and perinatal mental health aspects.
Absolutely. And you know, we found that this is so significant. Forgive me, I forget the bill number, but last year we passed legislation to expand postpartum care for birthing families here in Washington State because of these kinds of factors. We also know that a perinatal mood disorder can show up. They don't always show up right away. It could, but we also monitor those things for up to a year, right? But are families necessarily seeing the same provider and getting the same care else in other places for that full year? Usually not. So that is like the huge benefit of programs like this. So I'm gonna go to the next question. So we have actually several folks on our team at Open Arms who are certified as infant mental health specialists, and that's through WAAIM. Cynthia, you have to help me remember the acronym for
Mental health. Yeah, the Washington.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, say it one more time. Clearly, I was talking still. Sorry.
It's the Washington Association for Infant Mental Health. And sometimes we use acronyms so much that we forget what they actually stand for. This is a real.
Exactly. So we want to talk a little bit about that, y'all. Like, you know, what does infant mental health care look like? How does it work alongside caring for parents who may be needing support with mental health? So anybody want to take the floor? Cynthia, you want to take this one? This is kind of your specialty.
Yeah, I can talk about, we actually have a definition that we'd like to share, and then we can talk about it and what that looks like. So
thank you so much. Thank you for that reminder. Let me jump to the next slide. My apologies. There we are.
I don't mind reading it. So this is the definition from 0 to 3. 0 to 3 is an organization that provides a lot of like training and advocacy for anything 0 to 3, right? Babies in general and parents and families. So I'll read it. Infant early childhood mental health, sometimes referred to as social and emotional health, is the developing capacity of the child from birth to 5 years of age to form close and secure adult and peer relationships, experience, manage, and express a full range of emotions, and explore the environment and learn, all in the context of family, community, and culture. Strategies to promote infant and early childhood mental health fall along the promotion, prevention, and treatment continuum, which is what I was referring to earlier, where we feel like we land is in the promotion and prevention continuum of this. And so I can start, but I would love for you all to chime in. But we really think that infant mental health starts at pregnancy and supporting the person, the birthing person, and the family's well-being in order for them to support and start building relationship with the baby in utero. I think, you know, we talk about like baby can hear you and like managing stress and preparing for baby and starting to try to build those connections early on. It all supports the baby's mental, emotional development early. And then as you know, we look at the dyad and the parent-child dyad, or the caregiver dyad, I won't say because we don't know, right? And we want to do anything that promotes that. And so mostly we focus on the wellness of the person, but we're also asking about like, how are you, how's the relationship building with the baby? How is, look at how are they responding to you, responding to their environment? How are we encouraging exploration, and building those early like connections to support infant mental health? And so some of those things could be, like Elizabeth was saying, is reducing some of the challenges that are happening. And what Jamie's team does so beautifully is like, we know there was a study that that found that folks that couldn't get enough diapers, really, like they were more likely to experience maternal depression. And so I think even in that, being able to get what you need for your child also can support in that, like that stress level, in order for us to promote that dyad between the caregiver and the child. And so I see it as like, we talk about the parallel process in infant mental health, which is like, we support the person. It's kind of like these outer layers, right? And we in this reflective capacity, and also be able to support them, so the parent can support the child, right? And we support each other. We support each other the way that we want folks to support their children, right? I always say, like, like we treat each other the way we treat our clients, and the way we want our clients to treat their kids, right? And then it's just forming this beautiful like continuum of relationship building. Yeah, and I want to open it up to see what other folks wanted to add.
Yeah, I also wanted to share that we train our doulas in a program called
Promoting relationships.
I was getting ready to say, my brain was like, you're promoting first relationships. And at that, I sparked wanting to talk about that, because even within this definition, we're talking about really the child being able to explore their environment. And a big part of our work, all birth workers' work, including our lactation folks, is really helping our families create stability for themselves, and creating safe environments, and managing their emotions, right? And promoting first relationships is really about that social emotional awareness for the parent, so that they can find that compassion and bring that awareness to the child, and allowing them to have those safe places to explore, safe ways to explore big emotions. And what's really awesome about promoting first relationships is we start that work as early as 9 months old. And, for those parents out there, at 9 months old, that's when a child starts to develop stranger danger, right? They start to recognize, like, oh, you're not my mama. Well, who's this? Like they start to piece those things together. So it's actually a really, really great time for us to start bringing that awareness around our mental health and our social emotional awareness, so that we can teach it and help develop it in our kiddos. And I see Jamie's off screen, but I do want to invite Jamie to add anything if she's able. But if she's not, we will move on to the next question, because I know she's also taking care of family.
I wanted to add something about this.
Sorry, please do. Yes, please do.
I feel like, we're talking about, yes, maternal mental health too, and we want to center the baby, but what I think the piece that I want to connect is that early infant mental health helps across the lifespan. This is when babies are creating those attachments, and they're creating those early relationship connections that we know that have influence across their lives. And so those could be protective factors in mental health in adulthood. And so I just wanted to make that connection of why it's also so important and why we make sure that all of our staff understand infant mental health and like how their work is linked to, Elizabeth, you talked so beautifully about how early attachments and lactation, I know you said that a little bit, but it really does support the dyad, the work that we're doing. And we see this as like, part of our mission is to build strong foundations that last a lifetime. And I feel like this is one of those pieces that envelopes that.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm like, I'm totally agreeing with you, Cynthia. It's such an awesome point. And gosh, that sparked something else for me. Oh, what came up for me when I think about this, because I have this conversation all the time, more to your point, Cynthia, is that when we're talking about reproductive justice and social movements, and a lot of social movements that are happening right now for our BIPOC communities, our Black, Indigenous, and other people of color communities, we're talking a lot about liberation. How do we liberate ourselves from systemic oppression, liberate ourselves from other oppressive systems that interrupt these natural developmental points that we're talking about here? And I feel like the lone birth worker in the room that's like, I'm really tired of maternal health, and the perinatal health in general being left out of those conversations of liberation. If we want to talk about raising healthy communities, it actually starts at birth. It starts right in this period, y'all. If you want to have a healthier society, you want to have healthier people, you want to have more sustainable communities, it actually starts right here with this work. And so I feel really passionate about the benefit of really talking with our families around the social emotional development piece and really taking care of our mental health. I really feel like that's the foundation for any liberation work, any justice work. I think they're integrally connected. So that's my little soapbox.
And I like, go ahead, Elizabeth. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. We're all like, this is the stuff that gets all of us so excited. And I think it's just so, it's so vital, Rokia, that, we are all doing this justice work. We're all doing this interruption of colonial harm. And it's, it's vital in order, we know, looking at all of the statistics, that our Black and Indigenous and other communities of color have higher risk factors across the board for maternal mental health challenges, as well as maternal morbidity, infant morbidity, and all of these are related in various different ways. And so when we do this work, it is that that's why it's so vital that we're doing this in this community-based way, because it's not about something being wrong in our communities, it's about harm that was done to our communities. And so the healing has to come through rematriating and restoring the health of our communities from within, and us restoring these tools. And so when we are doing our work, it's not about saving people, it's about us together supporting each other and finding those tools. So helping our these birthing people discover that there's nothing wrong with them. They just need different tools, and that these tools have often been purposefully removed. Speaking from someone within the Indigenous community, we have almost I can't think of a single person from within my community who hasn't been touched by family disruption, whether by removal, genocide, and same within the Black community. This is a universal experience within our generation, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation. And so our previous generations we had our tools removed. So we weren't able to access these things. My grandmother was raised in an abusive Indian boarding school. So the only parenting tools she brought to her parenting were abuse, neglect, separation. And so it is joyful to be able to bring to our communities the truly traditional tools of attachment, connection, support, love, and this care across the lifespan.
Mm-hmm. Cynthia, you wanted to add a little bit more, and then we have one more question to answer after this.
I got lost in what Elizabeth said, so I don't remember.
I know, that's okay.
I interrupted you.
Elizabeth said it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too that is, I just want to add really quickly, that is very specific to both Black and Indigenous or African American and Native American communities, is that both communities experience being stripped from their religion, being stripped from their language, families being separated, and then, you know, just those things is literally what we're talking about here. Talk to your baby, speak your language to your baby. You know, when I get the privilege of working with families who, you know, they speak dual language, or, you know, when I was a community-based outreach doula, I served both Black American born and continental African families. And, you know, so when I got to work with I worked with a family from Gambia, I was like, speak your language. Speak your language to your baby. It's so important. And those are the things that really help build brain power. That includes school readiness, y'all. Like, it all starts in this perinatal period. If we can continue to support folks working in this period, continue to support families living, experiencing this time, we really could create a healthy society, y'all. Can't say that too much more. Okay, great. So the next question we have, y'all, is what does it mean to offer community-based support for folks who are pregnant or have just given birth? And how do you think the community-based model impacts your clients' mental health? Well, I feel like we've been answering that question quite a bit. So if y'all had a few more things to add, and I'm just going to go on ahead and throw in the next question in the interest of time, because I want to give the audience a little bit of time to ask questions, and we're a little over. But the next question is, what does this work mean to you? Why is it important? And I honestly think those two questions are very connected, right? Like, why do we do this community-based model? What does it mean to us, right? And, you know, I feel like we got on our soapbox a little bit about this, but, you know, I want to throw it back to the panel. Anything more you can add? Take, you know, 1 minute each to add a little bit more, and then we'll allow the audience to ask their questions as well.
I can hop in for my wrap-up minute, and thank you all for the grace this evening. I am here, but I tell you, this day has given me a lot, so I am going to speak, camera off. I am here, and I really wanted to just revisit the beauty of connection within the community model. To me, means that having a family who may have all of the tools at their disposal, but has not had them identified in a loving way, has not had the conversation around the strengths that they actually hold and possess and what they're actually doing. The community model means, to me, having someone there who actually is obviously well trained and well versed in infant mental health and is focused in on maternal health, right? Having those conversations, but also able to see those snippets, those moments, and really highlight for a parent, hey, I see you over there. Say you're cooking and baby is right there, right next to you, and you're talking to them about what you're throwing in the pot. You know, you're giving them a taste of what food from home tastes like. They're tasting food from home. That's important. And being able to call out the things that families are naturally doing, that these mamas, these parents are naturally doing in the household, and even calling in shared community family, extended family, being able to really acknowledge the strengths that a family has and what they're doing makes such a huge difference in the overall well-being and real belief that they have in themselves, the experience that they have of themselves in parenting, and they're able to see that reflection with community-based matching and care that really might not happen the same when you have someone who's not from the same community, not from the same culture, who doesn't necessarily have that same understanding or respect. That, you know, there's things that might be missed, but there's something that even in the inflection of voices and the way that we share our stories that really matters. And being able to have someone in the home who can see and hear and hold that makes all the difference for families who are fighting so much already, that, you know, they have someone who is that trusted person who really sees them and hears them and can hold them in that special way.
I'll do my minute, because I'm also going to put on my clinical hat and say I think community-based support is so important. We can be very responsive and flexible in the way things change, and implement any changes that our communities are telling us, hey, we need this type of support and we need it to look this way. We understand, and I want to honor the fact that, you know, acute mental health is very real in perinatal work, and, you know, and we do very well. That's why we build very strong connections with community-based providers in order to make that connection when it's necessary. But that takes also a lot of work. There's not a lot of clinical folks that understand perinatal health, mental health work in depth, and all of the different layers that we have discussed today. And so I think that, you know, I want to also honor that piece for anyone that has had that experience in the past, that there is a time and a place in order, you know, to be able to support someone in getting connected in that way to a higher level of care. And those connections happen with more success when they're being like fielded with someone that they trust, because there's a lot of thoughts that go into before, like there's, again, we were talking about like stigma, and if they get put on a waiting list, that can also be really detrimental for someone to not get connected. If they get a no, or if they get, sometimes it takes a while to even get connected. And some, you know, our providers are like, hey, we can, let's try it somewhere else, or like let's find these avenues. So even systems navigation to get connected in those like really intense cases, that we, you know, that's another way that we, as in a community-based setting, can support someone to really get connected and not fall through the cracks.
Elizabeth, you have one more quick.
Yes, I will do my best to stick to 1 minute, because we all know that is not my forte.
I know.
But I think what summarizes to me the importance of the community-based model was, I came to birth work kind of through the mental health support. I started in doing perinatal support groups after experiencing perinatal mood disruptions myself. And then I also had difficulty with lactation, which was how I got into the clinical side of lactation. And I didn't really start weaving them together and understand the community piece until I was sitting in a lactation conference, and there was a presentation by Kami Goldhammer, who is just phenomenal, one of my absolute like role models, idols. I'm like a hugest fangirl of her in the world. She's a licensed clinical social worker, as well as a board certified lactation consultant. And she said it so succinctly and so perfectly. So I'm just going to share her words. And she said that lactation, breastfeeding is more than a feeding choice. It's a restoration of a traditional community practice. And this was after she had done a presentation about epigenetic trauma. And I sat in this room and I wept, because in that moment, I understood that these were all tied together and we cannot take care of one of them without the others. And so that is what's so important to me, that I'm able to support that, that progress being made within our communities, to tie those things together, so that we are not, when we're seeking lactation support, that it is not just a tab A slot B solution, but that we are supporting people in, so in my lactation work, that we are holding that mental health piece, that we are holding that, that community support piece.
Brava, brava. Well done, y'all. Okay, so I feel like we have time for one, maybe two questions, because we have a passionate group. I know if we get one question, we're gonna attack it. So, Eddie, if you're still in the room, can you help us navigate questions? Anybody popping up? Please feel free to unmute y'all, or if you had a question in the chat, maybe Edie, I don't know if you saw questions in the chat for us.
I haven't seen any in the chat yet, but feel free to chime in or raise your hand if you have a question.
I've got a question.
Hi, David.
Hi, can you go back to the slide about the definition of infant mental health for a second? Is it too late for that?
No, I can actually even copy and paste it into the chat if you want it for yourself.
Well, basically, if you could just read the part about the healthy infant. I can't really see the chat on my tab. Oh, here it is. So it says, developing capacity of the child from birth to 5 years of age to form close and secure adult and peer relationships. And what really struck me as absent from that is the word sibling, because when I was born, my parents took me home from the hospital, and my brother said, I said I wanted a brother, not a baby brother. And then he didn't talk to me he wouldn't talk to me for 5 years. So I thought the absence of the word sibling there was kind of interesting.
Oh, thank you for bringing that together. Yeah, I think those family connections are so important, right? They're our first intros to engaging in relationship and conflict management and those kinds of things. So I really appreciate that piece that you're adding to that.
Thank you. It's a great presentation.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Oh, I'm getting to see who all is in the room. We have friends in the room. Special shout out to Ashley McGirt, who is the founder of the Washington Therapy Fund that is providing free mental health services to our Washington and I think expanding to California. Hey. Nice to have you in the room. Good to see you. Elena, also from the Open Arms fam. Hello. Just quick shout outs to those folks, but any other questions from folks? And if not, that's okay, because it is 7:58.
Any other final questions? Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'll just close us out and say, I know I speak on behalf of the entire panel. It was absolutely our pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Edie, for all your tech support and grace and holding us here. And folks should know Open Arms Perinatal Services our offices are located in the Seattle area. However, we are serving families in Snohomish, primarily King and Pierce counties. And as we know, our families are migrant and they're moving around. So if you're in our region and you're seeking support or services, you absolutely can reach out to Open Arms. You can go to our website at openarmsperinatalservices.org. And we serve anyone who is experiencing lower economic status as sometimes, people come in and out of that. But if you are having experience of being low income or economically challenged in any way, we offer all of our services for free. And yes, they are open to families regardless of race, gender, identity. So please don't hesitate to reach out and seek services. And we have a wonderful, powerful network of folks, including other doula programs that we partner with and refer to. So we are a great place to come and get support and get information. Again, you can find us at openarmsperinatalservices.org. And you can reach out to any of us individuals at our first name at openarmsps.org. So yeah, I don't know if y'all had any other closing things to add, but other than that, it's 8 o'clock. That's the end of our spiel, y'all. Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you all so much for doing this tonight. I'm so loved spreading information about your organization and all the wonderful things that you do. So if you're logging off of the Zoom, you will receive a survey invite. So go ahead and take a look at that survey. That helps us with just demographic data for our funding for future programs. So thanks so much for being here tonight. All right.